So the traits that we have been talking about are those characteristics that are inheritable. That means that you can pass them to your offspring. So the parents pass them to their offspring. If you get burnt, there is no way you're going to have a child who is having a burnt hand, for example. It's not possible. Why? Because that is not a characteristic that is inherited. So when you talk about inheritable characteristics or traits, we mean those characteristics that are determined by genetic makeup or basically genes, but can also be influenced by the environment. Okay? So if you appear in a particular way, that appearance is what we term as phenotypic appearance of the phenotype. The way particular characteristics are expressed outwardly, what we can see, is what we call a phenotype. If you are tall, that is phenotype, because we can see that you are tall. That if you are a person of blood group A, we cannot see you and say you're a person of blood group A unless we test you. What we test is basically what makes you to belong to blood group A. So the genotype is the genetic makeup of a particular trait. That if you are tall, what genetic makeup that you have that makes you tall. That is the genotype. The distinction is very clear. We said that every characteristic is determined by genes, right? But here we're also saying that genes have other versions, okay? And those versions are what we call alleles, okay? So you can have a gene for eye color, right? So the genes for eye color can be for brown, can be for red, but all of them are for eye color. We can term this as alleles. The different versions of the same gene located in a particular location on the chromosome. The location of a gene on a chromosome is what we call a locus. The plural is loci. Okay? So what you can have on a chromosome, this part here and this, those are loci. Location of a partition, where a particular gene is located. So that means that on the chromosome, you have different locations for different genes. So you have different loci. So on the location where you have the genes for eye color, you can have different versions for the different colors of the eyes. That's what we mean by alleles. Okay, the specific location of the gene on the chromosome is what we call locus. So different genes are found on different loci. So the alleles can be what we can term as homozygous if they are the same, or heterozygous if they are not the same. So if you have, let's use eye color, brown on one chromosome and brown on the other chromosome. This is the homozygous, they are the same. So we say that possessing identical alleles for a trait at the same loci is what you call homozygous. Heterozygous is when you have different alleles on the same loci. So you have two chromosomes, but the two chromosomes don't have the same alleles for that characteristic. So it can be that still again eye color, you have brown on one chromosome and then you have red on the other chromosome. So this is heterozygous state. That's the distinction. there. The alleles can express themselves differently. The meaning of this is that you can have an allele that masks the other, and that is a dominant allele. This is to say that if you have black and red alleles for eye color, the person will have black, let us say. So this black is the dominant allele, and then this red is the recessive one. It will not express itself in presence of the dominant allele. So for red, for the person who have red eyes, for example, it could mean that they should have both alleles as red for that expression to happen. That's what we mean there. The genome, which is basically the total set of genes that an organism has, that is what we call the genome. Okay, it provides us with all the information about the genetic makeup of the organism. So in summary, what we are basically saying is that genetic material is found within the nucleus of the cell, and we have DNA and RNA as the genetic material for organisms. In the DNA is actually found in chromosomes. Okay, this DNA is packed using proteins that we call the histones, and the chromosome itself has chromatids that are connected through the centromere. It is possible that the chromatids can separate during cell division. This is the structure of the DNA that we shall look at later. Genetic material is very important because it carries information from the parents to the offsprings, and that means that it should have the ability to replicate so that the offsprings can be able to get copies. It shouldn't change anyhow, because if it changes anyhow, you can have disorders happening. So genetic material should not always change anyhow. Okay, and organisms of the same species should have the same quantity and quality of genetic material, especially in the somatic cells. For reproductive cells or gametes, the genetic material may not be the same because of different processes that lead to variation. So coming back to our scenario, the farmer should note that actually the characteristics to do with tall and short corn plants, these characteristics are determined by the genetic material, and in this case, the genetic material is the DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. And during fertilization, you have these genes or this genetic material being passed to the offspring. So after you have gamete formation through meiosis, and then when fertilization happens, you will have that fusion, basically fusion of these gametes, and this fusion of these gametes makes what we call a diploid state, diploid zygote, and that zygote will contain the genetic material that they have received from the parents. Okay, but the other point to note is that the color of the kernels is actually determined by genes. Okay, and these genes, the way they express themselves depend on what is recessive and what is dominant. Dominant will always express itself even in presence of a recessive gene. A recessive gene will never express itself in presence of a dominant gene. Okay, we also talked about terms to do with alleles, which are basically alternative forms of the genes. So it is also okay for you to say that kernel color is determined by alleles, and these alleles have different versions. Some are dominant, some are not, and those that are dominant will always express themselves, while those that are not will not be able to express themselves. Okay, and then The farmer also plants only yellow, and is asking himself whether all the new plants will be yellow. The answer is not always, not necessarily that the new ones will always be yellow, because there are processes that result into variation or recombinations that will actually give you other colors, even if you planted one color.